All right, what crazy video do I have this time? Well, I'm gonna tell you. I made a cross-section pant form, and why do you want that? Let me tell you. If you're fitting pants and you're really struggling to understand that section right there at your crotch rise, having the cross section lets you see exactly what's going on. I made this admittedly to demonstrate how the crotch curve fits on a person for the pants fitting skill building session I'm doing in the guild. But I think that this could be useful to lots of people or other people who are teaching the same kind of thing. This way you can kind of see, here's this depth. What if this was a flat plane right here and you could think of it that way, making it a little easier to understand what's really happening when you're fitting the pant. I'll probably have some more pant fitting videos, but right now I'm working on helping others. But I thought I'd share this with you because it was faster and easier in making the whole pant form that I did back here, and it was a little cheaper. I used the Bootstrap Fashions custom pant form where you put in your measurements and then it spits out a pattern in a day or two. And I basically just used certain pieces that I'm going to show you, and I constructed a stand. And I would say this whole project is easily under $50 if you're kind of watching what you use. I spent about $40 on the pant stand pieces, and that's because I used a local hardware store who I really love to support, but it probably did cost me a little bit more than it needed to. And the pant form pattern was $26, but I used it for that, so I've already gotten to use it twice now. And then I used some Kona cotton on the outside, one zipper, about 2 pounds of polyfill, and interfacing. I interfaced the entire piece here. So this little sample that you see here was one that I just could not wait to try out my pant form, and so I ran and got it, and you're going to see it at the end because I just really wanted to see how it was doing. I did not fit this pant to this form, but it fits pretty darn good, and I cut it down the middle. So one of the things to think about is, because this is on a pole, I have to leave the inseam open to be able to get the pant on and off of her. And on the pant form over here, I have her hanging, and there's more about that at the very end of the video. All right, so this is the pant form without the fabric on there. This is the back right here. This is the cross section. There's that crotch curve. You can even see it in person. It's very obvious right here. And then that's the front. And then the leg. And she was supposed to, the pipe was supposed to come out the top, and so she was supposed to be kind of lifted up a little bit, but she's kind of resting on the bottom here, that I have this knuckle down here on the pipe, and so she's kind of sagging there, but I don't really care about that so much. I just really wanted something to be able to illustrate exactly what the body is doing through that area there. So join me while I make a pant form, but only half. Okay, for sewing this, I'm going to sew right sides together, and then I'm going to open the seam and I'm going to top stitch on either side of the seam. I find that having it really nice and flat and sturdy is my preference. You don't have to go to all that trouble if you don't want, or you can press the seams to one side and top stitch it down, but I highly recommend you take this step of pressing them open and stitching on either side. You're going to be a lot happier with your form, and it'll feel a lot more legit. All right, so first thing you're gonna do is get your pieces that have darts, which is number 4 and number 10. I'm not using number 10 since I'm only doing this little part of the leg, so I've got number 4 out, and I only have to do 1 because I only have 1 leg, right? So I'm gonna use kind of a short length on my stitch as well, a little shorter. I'm gonna backstitch my dart. You never see me do that, and that's just because it's not a garment. All right, so this right here is the back. So I'm gonna press the dart going down, and I'm gonna top stitch it. I'm gonna pull it apart really firmly too. All right, so that's number 4. And then do your number 10 if you're doing it. And now I'm going to stack my pieces in order of the number, and I like to have them the direction as well so that I don't get too confused. All right, so we're going to take number 1 and number 2, and we're going to sew these together. And when I finish pieces, I like to put them on the floor so that they start assembling the form and I can kind of keep track. All right, so that's 1 and number 2. You know, on these kinds of curves like this, I like to hold my pieces separate. I know a lot of people that really like to use pins, and that is totally fine to do. Oh, I realized I just missed my darts there. So I like to pick up the piece and hold it kind of separate when I'm doing things like princess seams or anytime I'm matching a straighter seam to a curve. All right, and then I'll top stitch this and then I'll do those darts. I knew it felt like too few darts this time. Sorry about that. Okay, let's press that. You can iron too. I say do as much effort as you're willing to do on something like this because you're going to be putting a lot of work into this. And while none of it's very hard, it just is just kind of, you know, step by step, you know, building upon it. You don't really want to be having any regrets on something like this because it's gonna be sitting there in your studio looking at you and you're gonna be using it a lot. So you might as well do all of the work you're willing to do on it. If you're feeling guilty about not hand tying your darts, here, let me show you another little cheating way to secure the threads. So we're going to go all the way straight down to the vanishing point. And then when we get there, we're going to turn around, sink the needle down there at the end, and then go into the meat of the dart and backstitch there. All right, and so now we have these darts, and so this is the center back. So I'm gonna press the darts away from the center back. I'm pulling really hard to really flatten it out. All right, and so there is the beginning of our seat, our bum. All right, so this is 3 and 4. All right, so now we're going to do 5 and 7. The numbers are a little out of order here. This is the upper leg, and you're going to put 5 and 7 together like this, so you see this nice curve. And your notches are the triangle. The T notches are on the other side. I just actually got confused and had to resew this, so make sure that you, and I just said in the video to make sure you keep track of your leg pieces because this is where I got confused last time. They all look a little bit similar. So make sure you label them correctly and you know, do one thing at a time, place it down. If you're opening every seam and top stitching on either side of it, you definitely want to make sure that you're not going to have to seam rip any of that, right? All right, that's 5 and 7. Now we have 6 and 8. You're going to put these so that you have this nice little swoop right here. See that right there, little swoop? And then you're going to put the double notches to each other. And when you get to these little curves, it's a little harder to top stitch, and so I kind of bend the fabric like this. Kind of curve it the way it wants to curve. I'm just curving it, you know, the other direction. And then I can kind of keep those seam allowances a little bit more tame. All right, that's 6 and 8. So now, if you're doing the entire pant form, you need to put your 9s together to each other and your 10s together. So I think there were 4 9s and 4 10s. So you need to stitch 2 9s together and 2 10s together. It's the front leg, the shin, and the calf. All right, so let's get our 1 2 and our 3 4 back out. and we have this triple notch here, and we're gonna sew the side seam now. So we know that this is the center right here, and we know that that wouldn't go to the back, right? So let's just move all these pieces now. Pretty much done with those. And we're gonna put these two side seams together and leave the rise here alone. All right, and so now we have our front to our back, just like that. All right, so we have our 5/6 and our 7/8, so our 6/8 or 5/7 out here. And this is how they go together. So we're gonna put the 6 to the 5, and that will be our side seam. All right. So then if you are making the entire pant form, you're going to sew your 9s and your 10s to each other at the side seam. I don't think it matters which one. Just make sure you have a left and a right leg. And then now we're going to start putting the whole leg together. All right, so if you're doing the whole pant leg, you're gonna put your shin and calf, your 9s and 10s, to the lower leg right here. So put that down here, and we're going to be putting I'm going to be putting a kneecap right there. So put that to there, and then you'll have your whole lower leg, match up your seams. And now I'm going to attach this upper leg to the torso here. I personally think that it might be a little easier to sew this with the upper torso on the bottom and then the leg on top like this. And then match all your notches and your seams. All right, so I know this seam goes to here, so I'm gonna try and make sure I make it. There we go. You can see why just keeping them separate sometimes gives me a lot more opportunity to be able to pivot the fabric, because sometimes you can't pin it all the way down the seam, and you kind of hinder yourself. But I know some of these like curves right here, you gotta be really careful because they can be really stretchy. So what I do, this is often what I do, is I'll line it up on the seam line. Remember, not at the raw edges, but at the seam line here. So that's about right there. And you can pin that if you want. Here, let's just pin this. And then now I know that's non-negotiable. And so what I do is I'm gonna pull this like this, and you can see it's kind of buckling under there. And then I pull the top layer back, and then I pull the whole thing just a little bit. I'm not stretching it. I'm just trying to get all these curved edges to be straighter. Make sure that bottom layer doesn't buckle under because it's really narrow. Keep your raw edges lined up. I'm gonna take my pin out because it's kind of in the way now. And I can kind of rotate and land right on that seam line right there, see? All right, so I haven't been clipping my curves because I haven't really had any. If you have some really significant curves on any of these seams, clip them a lot and then top stitch them. Don't clip them afterward. And I also recommend clipping then ironing. It's a little harder to do, but you're gonna get a much nicer curve on that seam. You can always press it open, then clip it, and then iron it again to kind of help them spread out. The pattern says to clip every 1 5/8 inches, but I say you do it a lot more often than that. I'm doing it like every 1/2 inch. The steeper the curve, the more clips you want. The clips are what's going to enable the curve. All right, there's not much curve here. All right, so I'm gonna iron this because it'll be easier for me to top stitch it if I do. All right, let's top stitch this crazy seam. All right, so now you get to make the leg. We're gonna do this whole long inseam. Match your seams again. Gotta really pull it around to stack that seam up. There we go. All right, and so this is gonna be the toughest one to top stitch. It is possible, but it's pretty tricky. And when I sewed my pant form, I was a little bit overeager and I put this in a different order. And so I ended up having like the whole leg, and then I top stitched it to, or then I sewed it to each section. And I did each leg differently to see what it was like, if either one of them was easier than the other. And they were both the same easiness or hardness. So if you do it in a different order, it's totally fine. I'm going to top stitch this best I can here. I don't have a free arm on my machine, so that makes it a little harder, which means that I have to do it on this flat table surface. So I do it from the inside. It'll make it a lot easier. All right, that wasn't so bad. All right, so now we're going to put the hole in the kneecap, but let's check it out. So I know in the directions it says, you know, don't try on your pattern, your pant form, that it won't be the same, but I mean, who can resist, right? And I did discover a few interesting things along the back thigh, and I fixed them on my pant form. I'm not too worried about it on this one because this is a demonstration thing. I'm not really trying to be me perfectly. I'm just trying to have something usable for demonstrations, like I said. But if you want to sneak it on, I totally recommend it. And I should have mentioned this earlier because you need to do it before your lower leg is on, probably. This is about as much leg as you're going to be able to get your leg through on. And you may not be able to get it on. So don't think that it's wrong. Do not think that it's wrong. It's probably totally fine. Mine was just a little bit big in a certain area and I had a weird wrinkle. So I ended up just pinching it out, trimming it, sewing it, just trimming it really close and pressing out the seam and stitching it down, kind of like making a fisheye dart in the middle of nowhere. So, all right, so let's get our knee pieces here. And so I know that my pipe is this little dirty circle there. That's my pipe hole. And I just need to cut the circle. I need 2 of these. All right, I just realized that wasn't recording when I just did this little circle. So the next step, once you have 2 of your, because I was missing one of these, is you're going to put a hole in the center right here. So if you're using the original instructions with the ankle cap and then the little hole, you can use those if you want. I need this to fit over my pole, and I used it right here to make sure that it's going to go over it. And so I just kind of created the hole in the middle. I folded my fabric in half to find the center, and then I stitched around with some seam allowance, like, you know, I traced my pipe like this. So basically I sewed on the line of the tracing, and then I kind of worked on that little circle back and forth to see what would fit the best. I think I have a really tight fitting circle, but that's okay. I really don't want it to slide down past that knuckle that I bought for my pipe. All right, so now we have this, and as long as I can get my pipe in here, I think we're okay. Yeah, just like that. And then that's how it's going to rest on the longer pipe. There's going to be a knuckle, and then it's going to rest right on top of there. All right, this looks pretty good. So now we're going to put the cap down here, and we're going to have to turn this inside out. And so if you're doing the ankle, don't worry, it's not as bad as you think, and no one's ever going to see it way down there. So, all right, so it doesn't really matter where you start. And if you want, what you can do is make some guides. So let's just say, I'm not sure if this is equal parts, but it could be. For me, it is equal parts, these 4 seams. And if yours aren't, just make some marks. So pick 2 of them as your center, and then, you know, pull your centers away like this, find the halfway point, mark that, and then you can use your markings to line up your circle. And so I'm going to fold this. Let's see, let's fold it in half the way it was before. Like that. All right, and so now I can use these to line up to each of these seams. I'm going to sew it so I can see it. And again, I like the circle to be on top while I'm doing this, and I keep the 2 layers separate. Your ankle is a much smaller circumference, so you're probably not going to have any trouble shifting if you have this hole here, unless you don't have the hole and you just sew this all as one piece without the hole. You might want to tack it in the places to kind of keep it from shifting, but mine is pretty stable because of the interfacing and that circle in the middle. All right, so remember, stay on your seam line, don't drift. Focus on that seam line, and then just pick up your circle and rotate it around inch by inch, or really just less than that. A little 1/4 inch by 1/4 inch. Sew a 1/4 inch and then pull. So sew a 1/4 inch, pull. And make sure you're staying at your seam line. Rotate your leg around so that it stays upright. And then when you get to the end here, it'll be a little tricky. If it's really, really hard, stop and flip it over like this. Here, I'll do that. Do this. Stop and flip it over and do it from this side. It's a little easier to tame this little section like this, because you can pull this to the edge of the circle, just like this. If you get a little tuck, don't sweat it. It'll be fine. Just like that. See that? And now you want to clip this curve. All right. Now it's up to you if you want to top stitch this. I think I did with my ankle, but I'm not going to worry about it today. But we're going to put the stiffener in there now, the bottom, and oh, and I need a hole in this as well. So let's see here. All right, let's line up these holes here, put it inside. I'm going to try and get it so that it's sitting in there with the seam allowance coming up. I wish I would have remembered to put this in between the layers. I probably would have maybe quilted it or stitched it down just to kind of make it really secure. All right, so I'm at the home stretch now, and I'm going to sew this little hole here. So that's ready to go. All right, so there we go. We'll put the nicer side on the top. So one of the benefits of doing the pant form the way it comes is that you have a zippered top, and then that way you can constantly adjust your form, and you will be constantly adjusting it. Sometimes I'll even pad the tummy more or take it away because of whatever I'm working on. So you'll want that access. So on this one, I think I'm just going to put a little side zipper so I still have that opportunity. So I think I'll make this really easy on myself, and I'll just keep it right here at that seam because it's nice and straight. And think I'm going to have to trim off just a tiny bit on each of these so that I account for the width of the zipper. So I'm just going to trim off just a little bit, like a big 1/8 of an inch on both of these. And if you're sewing the other style, the full pant form, and you're wondering how to do those zippers, I recommend also trimming off a little bit on those straight edges like this, and then sewing your zipper right sides together. So just put both of your pieces like right sides together to the zipper like this and sew it, turn it. It's a lot easier to sew. All right, so let's see here. So I'm gonna sew this and turn it. I'm going to put it right sides together. I don't think I could have picked a better matching zipper. I'm going to top stitch it away just by pushing it away so that it'll stay flatter. This might end up looking a little funny on my pant form having the zipper right there, but it'll at least give me an easy way to get in there. And it'll also make the next step a little bit easier too. All right, so because this doesn't have a front or back, I can put this any way I want. So we'll just put this right sides down. Same thing. My machine just hates sewing zippers sometimes because I don't use a zipper fit. So we're just going to combat that by starting with the zipper on top like this. All right, and so let's top stitch this side too. All right, I'm gonna sew across my zipper and cut it off. All right, and now we can put this right sides together to the pant form here and do this completely strange shape here. And we'll be able to turn it right side out when we're done. All right, so let's take those out. I guess I didn't need to put those in yet. All right, so let's start with our big curve. And we're just gonna kind of go all the way around. We're gonna just pivot at the top here. Okay, we're matching notches if we have them, which we do on this curve. Not pulling or anything, I'm just letting it kind of lay there. And just staying on that seam line, just making sure that I keep my raw edges lined up, and then I stay on the seam line precisely, because it'll feel like it won't match, but as long as you stay on the seam line, it does. I could go into the whole reasoning why it feels really tight and everything, but I don't want to bore you. Just stay on the seam line, match your raw edges. When we go to clip this curve, it'll lay a lot nicer. All right, we're getting close to the top here, so let's make sure that our seam, we want this seam juncture to line up in the middle of the zipper there, kind of, right about there. And then we're actually pivoting on the zipper, which is, I know, a little weird. And so now I'm gonna pull this over, pivot, stay on the circle here, and now we just need to finish off our little half circle to there, which is a little bit of an awkward spot. And so this one I'm going to really pay attention to. I don't have any notches, and I drafted this kind of in a strange fashion, so I want to make sure that I don't run out of places or run out of room or get a tuck or anything. So because I can kind of manipulate this a little bit still by pulling this away or over that raw edge there to kind of line it up. And so it looks like, if anything, it's a little bigger, especially since I added the zipper here. So I'm gonna kind of hold this really loose and try and fit it all in there, but for the most part I think it's gonna be fine, and we're almost done. All right, and now I'm gonna open the zipper a little bit so I can kind of turn this corner a little bit. We don't really need to, we started at the corner, so we don't really need to turn it. But essentially, that's what's happening. Just like that. So now you see my zipper is along this little edge here. There's my Jellybean self. There's the top. That one's actually pretty easy to sew, considering it was such a weird piece. All right, so I'm gonna clip this curve along the rise right here first, and then we're gonna turn it right side out, and then we're ready to stuff it. We're just about done. I have not clipped through my curve in probably a really long time, probably 15 years or more. And I just did because the fabric folded on itself. I don't really need to trim that. I don't think I need to clip this curve either because it's going straight up. It's going to fold back on itself like this once it's done. So if you want to trim it down, maybe that might be a better option. So I'm going to just trim a little bit of it down. I think on my other one, I trimmed the seams all way down and top stitched them, but I didn't really do that on this one. This fabric was actually really nice when it was interfaced to sew for this project. All right. So I think I want the top stitching to go towards the body. You have a nice smooth curve on the top then. All right, and so on the curve here, I think, let's see, what do I want? I think that I want it also to go toward the body. So I'm gonna pivot this seam allowance toward the body. So I think this is the only seam that I didn't push open. I pressed to one side because I think that that's a better choice in this situation. Forgot my label, but I think I'll know what side's the back. All right, this is looking really good. Yeah, see, I think that was a good call, top stitching this on the body, because I want this to be as flat as possible. I already know that when I stuff it, it's probably gonna like bulge out a little bit, but I'm gonna put some stiffener right here, cut a piece that's without the seam allowance, and just stick it in here when I do the stuffing, and same with the top, and that'll help. All right. All right, so I'm so excited that I just ran and got one of my many prototypes I've been fitting on me and my other pant form. This is the one that fits me, but it works pretty good on this pant form. This pant form is a tad bigger than me, but I'm pretty excited to see this pant on here. You can really tell what's happening there. And look at this. See this right here, this section, if you just pictured this right here as flat paper, that's why you change this depth here, and occasionally why you have to scoop the curve or fill it in, because we're not all shaped the same way, right? So this was fit for my crotch curve, but you can see, and look at this, like watch, just picking this up a little bit to kind of get that better. I don't have a horizontal balance line drawn on this side of the short. I had to pick the left leg for this, but well, hopefully you can see what a big impact this is gonna be. And I really do think you could get something like this custom for you. It would take up a lot less space in your sewing room. And then maybe it would help you visualize things, or maybe you're a teacher and you're teaching pants fitting and you just need that kind of, that visual for the crotch curve there. So, and I'm really glad I didn't put that top section up because my pant form has that big section, and I obviously like my pants much lower than the pant. Like that looks really low rise, but it's not. That's like right below my belly button. The top of the waistband touches my belly button. So that's perfect. Not bad. I am so glad I had thought of trying this out, and I hope it was helpful to you.